let's talk more about the Conservative Party, because the Conservative Party are obviously going to start a 3-month leadership contest to replace Rishi Sunak this week. We now know there will be an announcement of the new Tory leader on the 2nd of November. Nominations open today. And I believe that's at 7 o'clock today. Now, essentially, if you want to be nominated, you have to get the backing of 10 members of Parliament. They are then put forward. Then the MPs will whittle it down to 4. Then there's a beauty parade when they then give speeches to the great and the good of the Conservative Party at conference. The MPs then whittle them down to the last 2, and then it's put back to the members, the members of the Conservative Party to decide who is actually going to lead that party. Joining me now is Damian Hinds, Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative Member of Parliament for East Hampshire. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Really good to talk to you. Where do you stand on this? I mean, so some might say this is a very considered decision-making process. We've had people like John Rentoul saying you shouldn't give it back to the members of the Conservative Party. My rebuttal to that is actually these are the people who do the coffee mornings, raise money, go leafleting. I know more than most people what it's like to go campaigning locally. It's hard, blinking work.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, people who do that work, volunteers in all political parties, local councillors, they are the lifeblood of our democracy. They are what makes our grassroots democracy work. I think it's good to have a participatory democracy. And by the way, you know, anybody can join a political party and be part of that and then be part of that broader process. And then when it comes to, you know, a decision like we are going to be making, be part of that too. So I do think having that, as I say, that participatory approach is a good thing. I also think it's a good thing that we have a good period of time to be able to discuss these things, not just to talk about who are the individual candidates for the leadership, well, that obviously is really, really important, but also to talk more broadly, to reflect soberly on what has just happened in this general election in which we suffered a bad defeat, but also reflecting on the period prior, the years coming up to it. We need to take what has happened with humility and make sure we learn all the right lessons. And then, as I say, you know, as we select the new leader, that then is the springboard to start to rebuild ourselves, to put ourselves in contention to be in government again. We are there to hold this government to account, be an effective opposition, but actually, to be a really effective opposition, you need to be an alternative government in waiting. We're clearly not there right now, and we need to build up to that. And this leadership contest is step one.
I mean, it was a catastrophic defeat. When you actually do the maths, if you say have 7 candidates and they all need 10 people to support them, that's 70 before you start. You've only got 121 as it is. So there are some problems there. I mean, one of the other things for me, and I've said this all the way through the election, is the Conservative Party has forgotten what it is to be Conservative. I think you'd probably agree with that, and many members of Parliament in the Conservative Party, including some of my friends who are Conservative members of Parliament. The issue really here is that it's not one party, is it? You've got multiple factions in there, the Conservative Growth Group, New Conservatives, the ERG, for example. I could go on. I think there are about 7 of them. How do you unite them?
Well, we have to, right? So first thing to say is don't be surprised there are different views in the Conservative Party or in the Labour Party or in any political party. Every political party is a coalition of different points of view. It'd be the most amazing coincidence if everybody thought exactly the same thing. And I'm not sure it'd even be that healthy. What we need to do to win elections, what you need to do is to make those necessary compromises, those trade-offs, to make sure we do come together in unity behind the leader, but also behind a programme, a proposition that you put to the electorate. And when you do that effectively, and we've done that many, many times in the past, actually then you are in contention to be the government. And then being the government, that is when you get to do the things that you think are really important, as you rightly say, David, all about what motivates us, what brings us into politics.
And just in terms of that, James Cleverly has thrown his hat in the ring. We've got loads of other names being mooted. Who are you supporting?
I'm going to hear from all of them. I think we've got a lot of talent in the parliamentary Conservative Party. I've been one of those who's been saying let's have a longer period to have this debate and this and ultimately election of a leader. There's no point in having that long period if you don't use it to have the discussion and to let to let the ideas come forward, to hear from people, to see people actually just, doing their work and be able to evaluate that. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad we have this period of time, including, the big moment at the party conference, at the stage where we'll have four contenders. All of it is going to be important towards selecting the right leader, but also having that soul-searching, sober reflection and debate about how we rebuild ourselves, how we present ourselves back to the British people as a party, contending for government, because that's what our democracy needs.
One of the reasons you lost so badly was the lack of control over immigration, and I think there is such anger around the country over that. Now, the Labour government has rather changed direction somewhat. I think that's an understatement. They've abandoned Rwanda. They're now closing the Bibi Stockholm. They're effectively granting the amnesty to 120,000 people who were caught because of the illegal migration bill. And it says it will deport as many people as they can, but there is no returns agreement with places like Syria and Afghanistan. What are your thoughts on I mean, there's no deterrent. As far as I can see, there is no deterrent now. Anyone can come. Just pop on a boat, in you come.
Well, we've been very clear, and we had this debate, repeatedly during the election campaign and before it, that yes, you do need a deterrent, and that is what the Rwanda plan was all about. The new government scrapped the Rwanda plan without even a vote in Parliament, and they haven't replaced it with something else. But look, they are now the government, and they say they're going to be able to bring down the backlogs. They say they're going to make everything work better. They talk about this border command. We already had a border command. It's not totally clear what the difference is, but it's up to them now to demonstrate how they are going to do this. I think, cancelling or not renewing the contract on the Bibi Stockholm from January, that puts a pretty aggressive deadline on some of the things they have to do. But now it's up to them to demonstrate that.
Can I just ask you about this report this morning? UK must be ready for war within 3 years. This is according to General Sir Rowley Walker. He said that essentially Putin is going to remain energised, and he will come out of Ukraine feeling very, very aggrieved over our support for Ukraine, and that we're entering very dangerous times. Indeed, I mean, I think this is a very sobering and worrying thought, but he is a man who he's a man in a position and knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and we must listen, of course, to those respective voices of experience. And it's without doubt true that Europe is a dangerous place with Putin in control in Russia. And even if it wasn't Putin, whoever else it might be, I think we have to have as you say, a very sober assessment of the security situation in Europe and our own defence. That's one of the key reasons why we were clear that we need to move to 2.5% on defence, with a deadline, the 2030 deadline. We haven't got forever to wait, and we call on the government to match. I'm disappointed they haven't done so. Now they've got this long review to come before they may make such a commitment. But clearly we need to be sure we are investing properly, firmly in our defence.
Thank you so much for your time. Really good to talk to you, Damian. Damian Hinds there, a Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative Member of Parliament for East Hampshire.